Hello, nerds. Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. This show right here is The Week in Nerdom. I am your host, Dustin, and this is the show that you can watch twice a week, that you can get all of the nerdy news updates, not just TV and movies, but we do cover those as well. We're also talking video games and comic books and music and anything in between. And now let's hit that intro so we can get right into it. Housekeeping is the same as it has been for the last few episodes. We are gearing up for Salt Lake Comic-Con 2019, or FanX Fall, whatever. However, Salt Lake is branding it these days so they don't get sued. We all know exactly what it's supposed to be, though. That is happening next week, which means next week we will do one episode, and that episode might come actually a day early because Labor Day is next Monday, so that might be the day. Instead of just doing research on Monday and Tuesday, we might just do research on Monday and then do a quickie episode before I head out to Salt Lake, because it takes a little bit to get there and a little bit to get back, and so travel, all that jazz, it'll be a little bit of a headache. So we're gonna try and make this happen so that we only miss one episode, that we might miss two. That being said, that's the only housekeeping we have, so we're going to jump right into music news, and we've got some interesting stuff. 2 nights ago, Sunday night, was the Video Music Awards, and there was very little to talk about in the Video Music Awards because it's kind of... I mean, it might just be me showing my age, I guess, because I don't really care about any of the stuff that happened at the Video Music Awards, except shout-outs to Billie Eilish, because she did win 2 awards. I can't remember what the 2 awards were, but she did win 2 of them, so that's cool. I really dig Billie Eilish. The thing I wanted to talk about, the thing that I feel like is actually newsworthy about the VMAs, was Missy Elliot. If you are unaware, she is putting out a new record. I could not find the release date before going to record. I was so swamped with other stuff that I'm sure the release date exists, and if it does, I'll put it on the screen. Otherwise, we got a new video. We did a reaction video and a quasi breakdown. I'll try and link to it in the cards, though YouTube, for whatever reason, I got a copyright restriction on the reaction video, and there's like a dozen other reaction videos up that didn't get copyright restricted. And I'm starting to think that maybe it's because I have better production value than most of them. I don't know. I really don't know. So, worst case, it's up on the Facebook. You can go check out facebook.com/generallynerdy, and you can see the reaction and an analysis of that video up there. But Missy Elliot, it was kind of a how-to VMAs performance. This is, when you think of really awesome and memorable performances from the Video Music Awards, this is the kind of stuff you think of. I think there were like 5 costume changes in the span of 7 minutes, and she goes through the hits, she goes through some new stuff, all, again, in the span of a little over 7 minutes. It's pretty freaking awesome. Link down in the description if you want to experience it. If you, like me, decided to skip the VMAs, this is the first time in probably a decade that I've just said, you know what, I don't think I want to watch the VMAs this year. But yeah, that is that's the one thing that we're talking about from the VMAs, aside again from Billie Eilish. Next, we're talking again about Dragonforce. They released another video, and the reason, like, I don't always do video releases and stuff, but I felt like this one was a little bit noteworthy because it still has their old bass player. It still has Frederic. I can't remember his last name right now. It still has Frederic. And not Stevie T. So, I mean, yeah, I realize Stevie T is very likely just going to be the fill-in for the tour, and then they're going to find a different long-term bass player, but since they did make that announcement a week ago, and now they're about to embark on the tour in support of Extreme Power Metal, I kind of figured they would put Stevie T in this video, and they didn't do that. He has been making videos with Jared Dines, though. They did their Gent 2019. I'll see if I can find the link and put that down there with the Dragonforce bit. But yeah, you can watch the new video for Dragonforce. It's called Heart Demolition. This is the first time I've listened to a Dragonforce and went, wow, this is slow. And that's not to say that it's slow by standard definitions, but by the Dragonforce, I sound like Iron Maiden stuck on fast forward standard. This is a pretty slow tune. And still not a fan of that vocalist, but you can go check out the link in the description. Let me know if you dig this tune or not, and we can have that discussion down in the comments. Next, we're talking about one that actually I had intended on putting on the last episode, but for whatever reason I skipped over it in my notes, and so I had to delete it before I posted the notes. It is The Devil Wears Prada. They're putting out a new record called The Act on October 11th. They're going on tour to support that. They put out a new song, or a new video for the song Lines of Your Hands, and I have a love-hate relationship with Devil Wears Prada. Sometimes I think they make some really interesting and quite good metalcore or screamo. They're kind of somewhere in between those two subgenres. This is one of the hate it times. This was unlistenable. I don't know what, it was hard for me to really pinpoint why I disliked it. So just like a part of it is the vocal delivery, part of it is the disjointed isn't a bad thing, but the disjointed nature of this song is. Does that make sense? Generally, like, I love things like Dillinger Escape Plan, and one of the best ways to describe their sound is disjointed. So it's not because necessarily it's disjointed, it's the way in which it's disjointed. So yeah, definitely, I don't know how excited I am about this record. Maybe if I hear a couple more tunes off of it, we'll have a more in-depth conversation on that. But right now, this is going to be a hate it moment with my Devil Wears Prada situation. Next is another one that has nothing to do with heavy music. Well, heavy in the distorted guitars and crazy riffage kind of heavy, but heavy still in the lyrical content. This is, we're talking about Tom Waits, and there is a new covers album coming out from, it's a group, it's a bunch of different female artists. And the name of the record is Head On Up to the House, Women Sing Waits, right? There it is. Yeah, Women Sing Waits. And it has a bunch of artists. I think I've heard of two of the artists that are lined up on this. Just a real quick list. This isn't all-inclusive. There's a couple that I missed. But Amy Mann, Joseph, I don't know who the heck Joseph is, Corrine Bailey, Ray, Roseanne Cash, Angie McMahon, Courtney Marie Andrews, Phoebe Bridgers, Shelby Lynn, and Allison Moorer, Patty Griffin, and more are going to be on this record. You can see two of these tracks. It's Ruby's Arms and Downtown Train are both linked in the description. Ruby's Arms was done by Courtney Marie Andrews, I believe, and then Downtown Train was Patty Griffin. I'm fairly certain that, I mean, you can click the links and follow, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm always excited about anything to do with Tom Waits. The reissues that we're kind of still waiting on, I believe. I haven't seen them. Does not to say that they haven't been released just yet, but I love Tom Waits' music. So far, of the two tracks we've heard from this record, it sounds like it's going to be a mixed bag, kind of like every other Tom Waits cover album we've ever seen. And that's kind of to be expected at this point. The first one, the version of Ruby's Arms, is slow and undynamic and very not good to listen to, but the version of Downtown Train that we have down in the link in the description is pretty good. It's definitely not Tom's version. Nothing will ever be better than Tom's, but this one I would say rivals Rod Stewart's version for sure. So that's that's a thing to check out for sure. Tom Waits is always good music. So, and then our last piece of news is a new tour and a new video from Periphery. They are touring in support of Periphery IV. Hail Satan is the name of the record. The name of the video is is the song Church Burner. And Periphery is another band that I'm kind of in a bit of a love-hate relationship with, because I think gent is a silly thing. And for a while, they were definitely trying really hard to fit in that really narrow subdivision of metal. And this song, so presumably at least a portion of this album, if not the whole album, is not gent. It is definitely prog, because Periphery will always be a prog metal band. I don't think that will ever change. But the structures and the riffs themselves, the phrasing of the riffs, is not what you would think of when you think of gent. It's not the crazy math metal proggy stuff that you're just trying to emulate Meshuggah. It sounds like these guys are finally starting to find their own legs. Now, I'm 4 albums in, I would surely hope so. But that's what we have for music. Let's hit up the next section. We are talking TV news, and first thing in TV news, we've got a bunch of stuff this episode's coming from D23, so be prepared. We're talking about most of the things anyway that come from D23. We've already done some things that came from D23. You can check the channel and maybe the card for all of that, or the card, I guess. But yeah, so Obi-Wan just got announced that being a part of the current universe, being that Ewan McGregor has signed on to be Obi-Wan again. We kind of anticipated it would be a younger Obi-Wan story, and it was confirmed that this Obi-Wan series will be happening at the same time in the canon as the Solo series, which also means that it's bridging the gap between the prequel trilogy and the Holy trilogy. So interesting. At least we know where it stands, right? Next, we got the official announcement at D23 again that Miss Marvel is going to be a thing, and there have been rumors plenty about the possible inclusion of Brie Larson, though that's kind of remains to be seen. My honest theory is that Brie Larson isn't going to be, at least not to begin with, is not going to be in the series until after we get Miss Marvel into movies, because after the movies, then I think Brie Larson will be convinced, because she's got that kind of ego. But I honestly think that the series is going to show, like, Captain Marvel on TV, and that's going to be what inspires our Kamala Khan in this series. That's going to be a change to the storyline, to the way the comic books did it. So a lot of people are going to be mad, but I honestly think it's going to be something along those lines. Next, also announced at D23 was She-Hulk. Again, potential rumors for the inclusion of Mark Ruffalo's actual Hulk is less, I don't know, this one's a weird one because of their weird relationship with Universal. Universal technically owns the movie rights for the Hulk, which presumably would include She-Hulk. But Universal hasn't really been able to do anything with it, kind of like Sony didn't really do a whole lot with Spider-Man, a whole lot that was good with Spider-Man before the Marvel deal kind of got refigured. So now Universal, I don't know, maybe they're getting weak on their deal, or maybe because this is technically a TV series, the rights are different. I'm uncertain. I will be keeping up on this as more comes out. Next, also announced at D23 will be Moon Knight, which means the previous 3 shows, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, and Moon Knight, are very potentially going to be, we're not going to see them in Phase 4. It's just not going to happen. But this is kind of a proving ground during the Phase 4 timeline that maybe we will see them in Phase 5. I'm talking movies, because obviously we're seeing them in Phase 4 in the TV series, right? So this might be potentially gearing up to introducing some or all of these characters, or maybe just one of these characters, for a Phase 5 movie, which Moon Knight would definitely be my choice, but That's just me. Next, also strangely from D23, because it's just weird to think of The Simpsons at a Disney event, but at D23, Matt Groening confirmed to fans that yes, indeed, Apu is staying in the series. He also later in that same panel or whatever the discussion was, he also said that we are going to be seeing very potentially either a spin-off or a new movie, or potentially both, which would be weird because The Simpsons is probably the longest, I believe, the longest running animated show on television, and it has yet to get a spin-off show. So Family Guy had 2 freaking spin-offs, and it's at least, oh man, I don't even know what the age gap is between the two of them, but it's fairly significant, and we got 2 Family Guy spin-offs. It's just a weird, that's awesome. I would love it. I'm rambling. We're moving on. Our final announcement TV-wise from D23 is the What If episode count, which is 23 episodes. And for those of you playing the home game, there have been 23 Marvel movies. So the presumption is that every one of the Marvel movies is getting a What If episode. Now that What If is an animated series, so it's going to be a less costly to produce, but it is going to be a thing that all of the screen actors are coming back to voice their characters for the show, which presents an interesting dilemma because 2 of those movies are Spider-Man movies. Homecoming and Far From Home both technically are Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and now that we know that relationship is tenuous at best, because right now there currently isn't technically a relationship there, though I do hear reports they are still working on it. No real update from the last episode on that side of things. But is this another situation where, because this is technically TV, that it's not going to be a breach of contract for Holland to do a voice for Spider-Man for somebody else, or even for Marvel to do an episode that includes Spider-Man, because, again, animated television and not a movie? I don't know how that falls, but it's really interesting to think about. But let's move next into movies, and we have another update from Snake Eyes. We got Andrew Koji, who has been cast as Storm Shadow. Koji, we nerds know him from American Gods. He was in Fast and Furious, and a Cinemax series that I'm thinking of looking up now because I saw this. It's called Warrior, and it's based on the writings of Bruce Lee, which is kind of awesome. Next we're talking about the Suicide Squad, the new James Gunn version of the story kind of reboot weirdness going on. Nathan Fillion has been cast in an undisclosed role for the movie, and for a moment there was the thought of, ooh, is he going to be King Shark? And then they made the announcement that, no, we got, what's the guy's name? Where is it? Steve Agee will be playing King Shark in the Suicide Squad movie. Steve Agee worked previously with Gunn in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So that's cool. I can dig that. Real quick update on Bill and Ted 3, aka Bill and Ted Face the Music. They have completed the primary production on the film, so now we have editing and reshoots, really, all of the post-production stuff. So we're that much closer. We're that much closer to seeing Bill and Ted 3. Super stoked on that. Now, potentially, my most excitable moment for movies in this episode is going to be Mortal Kombat. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about, so I'm going to try and burn through it real quick. A bunch of new developments. We've got first the confirmation, kind of, that JVRCH is going to be in the movie, which is an interesting choice this early in the reboot era. But the way this got kind of sort of confirmed is because a script leaked that is being used by the studio to do casting. And so the script is a conversation between JVRCH, Kano, and somebody that they have written in as role number 3. Role number 3 sounds like it very likely is going to be one of the protagonists, and they just didn't want to reveal who that protagonist was going to be. But in that conversation, not only did we see that CHVRCH is a thing, but we also saw that the Black Dragon and the Red Dragon organizations from the lore of Mortal Kombat are also going to have a presence in this movie. How much of a presence beyond this short scene? Very likely not much, though there's other things we're about to talk about that kind of the filmmakers might not be making all the best choices. So continuing on next, we got an update that Reptile also is going to be in the film, as Reptile and Melina and Sub-Zero are going to be something of a threesome in this movie, in that the three of them are working for Shang Tsung. Also, Shang Tsung is going to be in this movie. He is going to be reportedly the big villain for the movie, which makes sense because if it's the first movie in what you're hoping to be a franchise, he has to be the big villain. So if they get Kerry Tagawa to come back, kind of appropriate. I can dig it. But it's just weird. That's never been a thing in the lore of Mortal Kombat. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat lore nerd, so that kind of sits a little weird on me. The next thing is probably the biggest issue that I'm having with these updates, is that it has apparently been confirmed by HN Entertainment, a website that does these kind of things, that the main protagonist of the story is going to be, like we all feared, Cole Turner, who Greg Russo created for this movie. That's not a great move there, guys. There's so many amazing protagonists because the story is so multidimensional and so interwoven, that if you add to that and it isn't the most incredible thing about what you've done, and then it's going to be the worst thing about what you've done. And there's very, 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 very small window for error, and I don't think they're going to be able to hit that. So that kind of is a little bit upsetting. Also, we got Sonya confirmed to be in the movie, but we already knew that. But she has been cast. Jessica McNamee, I believe is how you say her name, who was in The Meg and was the only thing I recognized in her credits. She has been cast as Sonya. And apparently Sonya is going to be our primary vehicle for exposition in the movie, which is interesting, but I can see how you can make that work, definitely. Generally, in the lore, it's Raiden that is your exposition-heavy character, but who knows? And then speaking of... Oh, no, we already have the Raiden casting. I apologize. Lewis Tan has been cast in an undisclosed role. Lewis Tan, we know him, again, from Deadpool 2. He's been in quite a few other things, just not really much stateside. This one, because it's an undisclosed role, has me thinking that maybe it's Cole Turner. And we'll get into that in just a second, but we have one more announcement. We have Josh Lawson, who, nerds, you will recognize him from The Campaign and Anchorman 2, so he's got some comedy credit behind him. He has been cast as Kano. So, the whole Cole Turner thing, I've already stated why I think it's a bad idea. However, I think there's a way out of it. The strong potential exists that they are only using that name, Cole Turner, as a placeholder for the time being until they go into production, and it will be... That's a name that they want to keep under wraps. That's a name that they don't want the public to know. This character from the lore that is already established in this mythology you love is who we're using as our protagonist. So we're just using this placeholder name of Cole Turner. Now, that is a possibility. However, we have been, at least according to that hashtag show, we've seen a backstory for this character, so that is less likely to be the case, which kind of makes me sad. But that's all we've got for the Mortal Kombat movie. We've got just a couple more here in movies, so let's get to them. Next up, we have New Mutants. That's right, it is not a dead movie. It is still in the works. They are still actively editing it, and in fact... they're doing test screenings right now. Of those test screenings, it sounds like they've hit on something gold. They have got to a point where test audiences are reacting very favorably, so that kind of says to me we're going to actually see it get a theatrical release, which has me super excited because I want to see how you can take the superhero genre and turn it into a horror film, because that sounds incredibly awesome. And so far, our one experiment with that, being the reboot Hellboy, didn't go over so hot. But yeah, and then our final one is a real quick update again from D23. Black Panther 2 did get a release date in May 6th of 2022. That's right, May 6th of 2022, which very potentially means that is the first movie of Phase 5. Now we're talking gaming. We've got a couple of interesting... We're continuing with the Mortal Kombat stuff. This time it's the gaming side of Mortal Kombat. First thing for Mortal Kombat 11 is that Arnold Schwarzenegger will not be voicing the T-800. No, I have not been able to find who will be voicing the T-800, but even though he lent his likeness somehow to the project, he's not lending his voice to the project. On the other side of that coin, though, Keith David will be voicing Spawn. If you don't know who Keith David is, man, you need to Google that dude. Keith David was the original voice of Spawn. He's done a plethora of other voices, and he is the voice of Spawn. When you read those books, that's the voice you hear. So those are both pretty awesome. Well, the T-800's not awesome, but it's interesting, and the Spawn one is definitely awesome. So that's what we've got there. Next up, we're talking leak date for PS5, apparently sometime in February of 2020. That's right, February. That's a little early, I feel like. We very potentially are going to see Sony jump the gun on the holiday season. So, if this is true, we will definitely be tracking it. Otherwise, that's all we have is just a leak. And then our last piece is another real quick piece in Super Mario Kart Tour. Let's sit. And then our last piece is a quickie. Mario Kart Tour just officially announced their release date, and that is September 25th for iOS and Android. Now let's talk about comic books and round this episode out as the red battery light starts blinking at me. Guardians of the Galaxy just maybe potentially added a young version of Magus to their team. The cover and the solicitation for issue number 11 kind of suggests as such, and if you've been keeping up with this storyline, then you kind of understand a little bit why. I don't know, just Marvel is doing interesting things these days. I feel a little bit more confident in Marvel than I do in DC, and that's weird. Next, we're talking about Harley. There is a graphic novel being released called Breaking Glass, in which we are going to see a new version of the Joker. Again, this design looks weird. He's got these crazy eyes. I mean, you're probably looking at it right now on the screen. But it also, of note for this book, not just the fact that we're getting a new version of Joker, but we're also apparently getting a new version of Harley Quinn's backstory. Apparently, she and Ivy have been friends since high school, and Ivy's name is no longer Pamela Isley. What the heck is going on? But yeah, that's where we're at with that. Gwenpool is making a comeback. Her new series, I believe, starts the beginning of September. But in issue number 4, we already have the cover and solicitation, and apparently she is now also worthy to hold Mjolnir, the Thor's hammer, so that's a weird thing that's going on. And then our final piece that's happening in Ghost in the Shell, in comic books, is Ghost in the Shell. And we're getting another Ghost in the Shell series. This time it's from one of the authors from the second anime, but this is a manga, so this is another book. The writer and author, I'm sorry for butchering these names, writer Junichi Fujisaku, and artist is Hiroki Yoshimoto. They're doing this story between Ghost in the Shell 1.5 and the Ghost in the Shell 2, so it will follow close. This takes place when Major goes missing, and so this is following that area of time. It will follow the characters of Toguso, Batu, Azuma, Ishiwaka, and a new character named Tsunagi. That is super interesting. Love Ghost in the Shell. Whatever happens, I'm down for the ride. But that's the end of the episode. What did I miss? What should we talk about next week? Let's have that conversation down low. If, though, you want to jump into the conversation a little bit deeper, then there's a website, generallynerdy.net, or a Patreon, patreon.com/generallynerdy. Go check out both of those and help support the channel even more. Patreon obviously helps me a little bit more than the website, but either way is awesome. Go check both of those out. If you're new to the channel, please do not hesitate to click that subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when I post new videos. If you like the episode, there's a thumbs up so you can let me know that as well, or the thumbs down. Either way, I'm cool. If you're falling behind in your nerd news and you want to catch up, you can click or tap that box right there to the left of my face to do that. But before we go clicking boxes and visiting websites and going to the places, guys, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.